Hello, entrepreneurship class. So, I'm realizing I didn't exactly overload you with work last week, so I hope you enjoyed your time off. But however, it's time to start chapter 14, which is about competitive pricing, um, and something called EOU, Economics of One Unit. So we'll get into what that means when it's time, but let's go ahead and get started. Again, it's my expectation that you are taking notes, writing this stuff down as you go. Then that's going to help you answer the questions as they're embedded in Edpuzzle. So, with that said, let's go. What are our objectives? All right, chapter 14. By the end of this chapter, you guys are going to be able to explain how competition impacts pricing. We've already talked about this a bit, but you'll have a better grasp on exactly how competitive forces translate into changes in pricing and how both consumers and producers react to different prices. We're going to list the financial, social, and environmental benefits of profit. Again, that's what businesses are in business for. You have to be able to make a profit. Everything else is secondary. You could be a great company and you can have a great mission and you want to help people, but if you don't have good products that you can sell at a profit, it's not going to last much longer. And finally, you're going to be able to analyze the considerations of pricing to stay competitive. So let's go ahead and get started. So competition in a market economy. So first of all, you guys remember what a market economy is? How is a market economy different from other theoretical types of economies we learned about, such as traditional and command economies? So in a market economy, and we talked about a lot of these concepts during the economics unit, but in a market economy, suppliers compete for buyers and buyers compete for supplies. So what does that mean? Of course, you have multiple options when it comes to buying most goods. So the suppliers of those goods are competing for your dollars. So, think about grocery stores. Market 32 wants me to go there instead of going to Stop and Shop, which is, the same direction or the same distance in the other direction. So they compete for my dollars. And then think of those grocery stores. So think of Stop and Shop versus Market 32, which is Price Chopper. They're both buying the same goods from wholesalers and other intermediaries. So they're competing to buy the best goods at the cheapest price. So there's competition going on at multiple levels. So what effect does competition have? Again, we're talking about we have what most closely resembles a market economy. There are certainly command, parts of it because we do have a strong central government that makes some decisions and has a lot of requirements of businesses. But in general, market forces prevail, meaning that supply and demand really does its own thing. The government doesn't set prices. To an extent, it tells us what we can and cannot sell, but only to an extent. So what effect does competition have? So what happens when suppliers are competing for you as a customer? So as it says here, naturally prices are going to go down. One of the most basic ways that companies compete is on price. And all else being the same, you're going to choose to buy what's cheaper. Of course, it's rarely that simple when you're buying two goods. I mean, if you're just looking at, one tomato versus another tomato, if there's really no difference, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to take the cheaper one. But of course, then maybe one is a grape tomato versus an heirloom tomato or something like that. There's, of course, a different value that's in the eyes of the beholder or the eye of the purchaser. So, but in general, when we talk about market forces and we talked about supply and demand, so when suppliers are competing for customers, prices go down. Competition always benefits the consumer. And on the other side of it, when customers are competing for goods, prices go up. Think about what's going on right now in the world. A lot of people are having problems finding masks, finding gloves, because of the virus that's going around. So when customers are competing for those goods, prices are going to go up. Again, think about hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer is a great example of us competing for goods. prices therefore going up. And what else does competition do? Again, think of it from the frame of mind when we talked about supply and demand. So, what does that competition also do? And also when we talked about economies. So, competition encourages innovation and variety. So, when those people are competing for dollars, you're all competing for the same customers, it's going to say, all right, well, we need to be better. We need to come up with better products that maybe they're different colors that people prefer, or have different utility, have better value in the eyes of our customers. So that's what competition. That's what drives competition. So you need to be more innovative, come up with different choices, better choices for your customers in order to earn their dollars. So that's what competition does. All right, we've talked about the profit motive, but again, to state it very simply, businesses seek to make a profit. The profit is how much more money they're selling their goods than it costs them to make it. Business achieves profit when, of course, your revenue, which is the money you're taking in, exceeds your expenses, the money that you have to spend in order to get the goods that you want to sell. And of course, there's other costs there too. There's you might be making units of something. Like think about my salsa, and I've had to do a lot of EOU, economics of one unit calculations, to figure out exactly how much I'm spending on one jar, so then I know how much to charge for it. So there's other costs that are kind of hard to calculate too. Like I have to spend $25 an hour to rent kitchen space. So I have to take that and I have to sort of calculate that into my cost as well. It's not like I'm putting, this much of a product into a jar and I can weigh it and calculate that out. And, sometimes it's that simple, but there are other things like salary, for example, or maybe the amount of money I have to spend on insurance every year. I forget how much, I think it's $299 I have to spend on a basic insurance policy. So I basically have to take that $299 and divide it by all my units, and figure out how much more I need to charge in order to cover that cost as well. So when your total amount of revenue, the total amount you're taking in, exceeds the total amount that you're spending, that's of course when you achieve profit. So when you're determining your pricing, so you guys have interesting products that you've chosen for your business plans. So Ryan, you're talking about videography and how much do you charge for a customer to shoot a video. So there's lots of things you have to consider when you're doing that. So not only your costs, but what prices are competitive. You can't just say, you know what, I'm better than everyone else. I can sling this camera around better than anyone else in the market. So I'm going to charge $15,000 for a 30-second video. Not going to work, right? You have to be cognizant of what other people are charging. So if they look at you and say, Jesus, 15 grand for 30-second, commercial, and someone else is charging 5,000, who do you think they're going to go with? So you have to also consider what the going prices are. Apple can't all of a sudden start selling their iPhone for $5,000. If they did, they would not make much profit because they wouldn't sell many phones, because there are other options which are very similar at much lower prices than $5,000. So they need to be aware of what others are selling similar products for. So some people like to say, so if I asked you, who set your price? There's different ways to answer that question. Some say, oh, your customers always set your price. Yes and no. In a way, your competition sets your price for you, because they set the mark of what people are willing to spend, and you have to be aware of that. And you can go above it if you can prove there's greater value in your product, or you have to come underneath it if you want to compete on price. But you always have to consider, what are other people charging for a similar product before you set your price. You also have to figure out, does it represent a value to your customers? So are people willing to pay? There's some situations where maybe there's not a lot of competing products. Jalen, you have to think about this. So you're going to set up, parties, slime parties for birthdays. So what price point represents value to your customers? If, someone can look at it and say, oh, okay, well, it's $300. Well, that's not too bad because it comes with entertainment for 3 hours and it comes with this, it comes with that. Is that worth it to me? Is it worth giving Jalen $300 in order to save the time and the hassle of doing all that stuff myself? And how much I would spend, if I were to do it myself? Does it represent a value? And then finally, am I going to make a profit? Once I figure out, what other people are charging, whether it's a significant value to customers, are you actually going to make money? That was an issue with my salsa because, I walked down, the aisles in the grocery store, and most salsas are going for around 250 a jar. 250 for, a similar sized, thing of whatever, old El Paso, which is awful, by the way. Don't buy that, buy mine. But I say, okay, well, that's sort of the bar. People expect to pay about, $2.50 for a jar of salsa. I can't even make it for $2.50. My cost is around $3.35. So not realistic. So I have to figure out how to express the value of my product in different ways. I can't just compete on price. I can't just say, well, okay, I guess I got to charge $2.50. I'd be losing money every time I sold something. So you have to ask yourself, am I making a profit? So after I figure out what's competitive, I then have to figure out if it represents a value, and it does. It tastes better than all that stuff. Am I making a profit? No. So what do? Got to raise prices. Okay, so once you do that, I start selling for $5. So that's my price point. That's what I sell at. It's somewhere around 35% margin or something like that, gross margin. So benefits of profits. So as we talked about, I think it was in chapter 4 when we started talking about, the social aspect of businesses. So profit is the main incentive of many businesses, but it's not the only goal. As you guys know, some businesses are formed for a social good, to stop poverty, to cure diseases like what we're going through right now. However, of course, you have to achieve profit in order to do those other things. Profit's not always the only goal. So, sort of one term that people use is people, planet, profit. So those are the three things that businesses mainly care about. They care about their people and people in general. Are you doing a good thing for the planet? Or for the the people in your community, the people who work for you, the people who your stakeholders, the planet. Are you doing the right thing for the planet, for the environment? And then profit comes third. But you should be concerned about all three of those things. So another benefit of profit is you get to help the community. You get to help people that are in need. You get to do those other things that come along with running a successful, profitable business. You can then take that profit and put it where you want. All right, you can plow it into the business to make more profit. You can donate to charities, trusts, and all that sort of stuff. Help the environment. A lot of the causes that businesses are started from have an environmental motive. They want to reduce carbon emissions and greenhouse gases, and clean the oceans of all the plastics that are floating around. These are things that profit allows businesses to do. Donating to charities. So all these are benefits of profit. So let's review where we've been thus far in the chapter. So the part 1 objectives. So tell me, explain how competition impacts pricing. So that competition between buyers and between consumers, how does that impact pricing? What happens when producers are competing for buyers? And what happens when buyers are competing for supplies? Second, what are the financial, social, and environmental benefits of profit that we just talked about? And we're going to stop there for the day. So that's part 1. We'll review part 2 on Wednesday. So reach out to me with any questions in the meantime. I'll talk to you guys soon.